Right, everybody. Good morning. Are we live, Debbie? We're about to be live.
Indeed. Good morning, everyone. We are live and streaming. Thank you, Chair.
Right, so maybe if we stopped the Austin Powers chat, that would be fantastic. Right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this standards meeting on Thursday, the 16th of July. 17th of July. I'll get there in a minute. Sorry, it feels like we've never been away. To our standards meeting in Blackdown House at 10 a.m. Right, I will find the script rather than last standards meeting minutes. That would be good. I'd like to watch anybody who's watching live online and remind you that the recording will be available to watch again later on YouTube at your convenience. We're now going to start the meeting by doing a roll call of committee members here present, and we have a few apologies that have come in, but if anybody has any more apologies, please feel very free to mention those in the apologies. Debbie, could you please take us away with the presence sheet?
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with you, Councillor Eleanor Rylands.
Present, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John Loudon.
Present, Debbie, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Councillor Colin Brown, who's substituting Ian Chubb this morning.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tim Dumper.
Present, thanks, Debbie.
Morning. Councillor Stuart Hughes.
Present, Debbie.
Thank you, Stuart. On to Patrick Coulter. Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning, present.
And on to Robert Wood. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, present.
Thank you. On to Martin, please.
Morning, everyone. Present.
Thank you, Martin Goscombe. Ken Bryant. Good morning, Ken.
Morning, present. Thank you.
And last but by no means least, good morning, Pauline Stotts.
Thank you, David. Present.
Thank you, Chair. We are court. Would you like me to just run through the apologies?
Yes, please.
Okay, we've had apologies from Councillor Jessica Bailey, Councillor Ian Chubb, who has been substituted today, Councillor Joe Wibley, Diana Kerr is unable to join us, as is Serena Sexton. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Debbie. I do perceive we might have a problem with the location of people's microphones because the independent, we're probably still on the full council setup right now because none of the independent members, apart from I think Martin, was showing up on screen. Thank you. Right, okay. Agenda item 1, minutes of the previous meeting held on 16th of January. That is the previous meeting that was actually a fully constituted meeting because we were quorate of this year. Now, I don't know whether you all have printed minutes in front of you, but they are here. If anybody has an issue with the minutes, would you please make it known now? If I don't see any hands or any amendments brought, then I will presume that everybody is happy to note these minutes and move on. No, I don't see any issues with the minutes. So I presume that you're content to note the minutes and move on. Right, agenda item 2, apologies, we've already done. Declarations of interest. Debbie, that's over to you again, please.
Just to say, if anyone's got any declarations to make, please raise your hand and we'll hear them now, rather than go through the list. Pauline, do you want to press your...
Do I have to declare an interest because I'm a Councillor of Exmouth?
No, we already know that. Yeah. Thank you. It's just in relation to any of the items you've got on the agenda today. I'll take that as a no, Chair. Let's proceed.
Thank you, and thank you for sorting out the layout issue. Martin.
I think there's an update somewhere on the recruitment for the independent members. So I'm an independent member affected by the changes. I don't know whether that's something I need to declare or not. No.
But thank you for raising it. Yeah, thank you for raising it. Because it's a general update for the annual report and we're not specifically getting into the issues, then there's nothing that needs to be declared. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Agenda item 4, public speaking. I believe we have no members of the public registered to speak. Matters of urgency. I believe we have no matters of urgency to discuss. Confidential and exempt items. There are no confidential and exempt items. However, I propose to move the agenda around slightly later, which is to move the training session, which is in item 11, to outside the public part of the meeting because it will leave members freer to discuss the scenarios presented. The meeting will be available for members to watch again later for their own training purposes. But because it is a training session, I propose to move agenda item 11 to outside the public part of the meeting. And so when we will skip that in the public part of the meeting. Right. So it's not confidential, it's just, it will leave you freer to discuss things more freely. Right, into the substantial part of our meeting, which is agenda item 7, which is the Gifts and Hospitality Protocol for members. And I'm going to hand over to Melanie Wellman, our monitoring officer, to introduce this paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's quite weird because I feel like I've done all of this before. As you're aware, we currently don't have a gifts and hospitality for members in the Constitution. So I've taken the opportunity of drafting something which I hope will not only give guidance to members on whether they should be accepting gifts and hospitality, but also raising the profile of gifts and hospitality and making sure that members are declaring appropriately. So basically it's for those two purposes. What the protocol covers is obviously just some explanation around the types of gifts and hospitality that are caught by it, the fact that it's not gifts from families and friends, and you might think that that's quite obvious, but I have had that question in the past. The types that needed to be declared, what wouldn't be acceptable gifts and hospitality, and then very importantly, the general considerations that members should think about when they're deciding whether or not to accept a gift or hospitality. Some wording they can use if they want to decline a gift so that they don't feel uncomfortable. They can obviously say it's because it's the council's practice and they can literally use that wording. And then in relation to any gifts and hospitality below the £50 threshold that is set out in the Code of Conduct, that it is felt really that there may be circumstances where it would be appropriate to declare smaller gifts anyway. So if somebody was being offered a regular gift from the same individual, but they were all less than £50, but you were getting 5, 6, 7 gifts from them, then clearly my suggestion to members would be it's appropriate to declare that because it might actually show a pattern that somebody is trying to, to show favour, get you to show favour in some way. So that's there. It also reminds members that this committee will be moving forward overseeing the Gifts and Hospitality Register. So as of next time, you will get a 6-monthly report setting out the Gifts and Hospitality. And then the protocol itself, I'm suggesting, will be reviewed every 5 years. Now, we had a really good discussion about this at the session last time where we obviously weren't quorate, a lot of you made some comments which I fed into the document. Hopefully I've picked everything up, but if you do spot anything that you think I haven't covered, then please do raise that now. It's also been to the Constitution Working Group on at least 2 occasions, if not more, and their comments have been fed in as well. So it's been a very, very well-aired document. So hopefully it's now at a stage where you're comfortable with it, but I await any comments that you have and happy to answer any questions.
Right, okay, as ever, Councillor Brown may not be aware, I prefer to give the voice first to our independent members because they represent the more of the public's view on how we conduct things. So I always call on the independent members to speak first before we say anything. So if any of the independent members has anything that they wish to say or ask any questions, Martin, take us away.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I've got a few things I marked, which I do apologise because I could and should have really picked them up at the meeting that was in Cora. But the first one is at para 7.3, which talks about only minor gifts of token value should be accepted. I wondered whether it might be useful to just identify a couple of examples. Usual examples would be things like diaries or pens or things that are obviously very low value. But just to put that in there would help people focus on what is really minor.
Very happy to add that.
Thank you. And then at para 8.8, there's a paragraph that talks about declining gifts and hospitality. But in terms of the structure of the document, it's placed at the end of, I'm sorry about this, but it's at the end of the section that is to do with hospitality rather than gifts. And there are 2 ways of dealing with that, really. either repeat it under the gifts bit so it's doubled up, or you could create a separate heading of declining gifts and hospitality, but sadly that would require you to renumber the rest of them. But I think I'd go for the second one, would be probably neater, but it doesn't
fair
matter.
point.
I have renumbered it many, many times, but one more is not going to matter. So I agree with you that a heading of declining gifts
How
and
to
hospitality
decline, yeah.
would be the best if you're happy with that, members.
And
Thank
then
you, yeah.
just two or three more little tiny things. At para 10.1, where it's giving advice on completing the declaration form, it might be helpful to just, in the second sentence, second line, to make it clear that they should identify the person or organisation making the offer is not currently stated in that. It talks about provide details of the gift, but it doesn't talk about identifying the person or organisation making the offer.
Thank you,
That's-
Martin. Mel, does the form contain a
Yeah,
field
that's
for
really
that?
well
It's on the
spotted
form.
because
I'm
sure
it
it's on
is
the
on the
form,
form,
but,
Yeah.
and it should be there. So totally agree.
The tiny one at para 11.1, first bullet point, second line, where it could be perceived as something offered to you because of your position.
Yes. Yeah.
And these are nitpicking, I do apologise. In the same bullet, the fourth line, even where that gift or hospitality falls below, gift or hospitality
Yeah.
falls. Can you see that one?
No, I'm sorry.
Fourth line,
Which paragraph is that?
application to the council, brackets, or is
11.1.
about to end brackets, even where
Top of
that
page 15.
gift or hospitality.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it covers both. And the very last one, in the second bullet point, same paragraph, covered earlier in the document, but probably worth repeating, over a financial year rather than just a year. This is where there are repeat gifts or hospitality. Financial year, second line, second bullet of paragraph 11.1.
Okay, can I,
Yes, please.
just on that point, is it financial year or
Mhm.
council year?
Yeah,
Or
maybe.
calendar year.
Did you change it to civic?
Yeah.
I think.
So civic year would be May to May.
It says financial year.
Yeah,
earlier
we
in the
changed
document.
it
I'm
to
sure I've
financial
seen
last
financial
time.
in there.
Yeah, we changed it to that explicitly last time, but we can obviously change it again.
I'm just wondering whether having financial years rather than civic years makes it more complicated for members, because obviously our elections to various roles are in May.
I think it was to make sure that it was clear to both members and the public, because the public don't understand what civic year
Yeah.
is, whereas most people understand what the financial year is.
Okay. Yes, please.
I think it was also because we had a discussion in the in-court session about the auditors being able to look at it. And of course, the audit follows the financial year, not the civic year. So I seem to remember quite a debate about which year.
So we're defaulting to financial year in every situation where it says year. Okay, fantastic. Does anybody else have anything? Yes, please, Ken.
Thank you. Just a minor point, really, but of clarity. 9.2 refers to, in brackets, whether accepted or refused. And I wondered where, under 10.3, record keeping, whether we should put that in as well for clarity. So the record keeping also includes, in brackets, whether accepted or refused.
Thank you, Ken. Do our independent members have any more questions or things that they want to say? No, thank you very much. And moving to the councillors, do you have any comments or questions or? Councillor Loudon first, please.
Thank you to colleagues for inputting, and thank you, Mel, for bringing this forward. It almost beggars belief in some ways that we didn't have something like this on the books, and so it's highly appropriate that we have spent some time looking at this and trying to get it right. I would hope that for most, if not all of us, this is going to be a document that we probably never have to pick up and consider. And it may well be that I'm Billy No Mates, but you know, I've been a member now for 6 years, and I think I have had 1 pint in 6 years. So, although there is, and it's a serious point, there is sometimes a perception that as elected members, you know, we are constantly in receipt of things, and whilst it can be a bit of mirth in the pub occasionally, there is also, I think, an underlying theme that there is a perception, for whatever reason, that councillors, and I don't think it's just this council, I think generally, are on the make. And I just really think that's a sad indictment of society. And I would hope that this document, once it comes into being and we, as members, complete it accurately and honestly, that we then can demonstrate, you know, that that's a fallacy.
Thank you, Councillor Loudon. Councillor Dumper, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I was involved in the in-court meeting and the discussions around this, and thank you very much, Mel, for your completion again and keeping renumbering and all the rest of it. I don't, other than what's been mentioned already, I don't see any more things that we need to change, and it seems to be a very good policy. So I would, do we need to vote on it and vote it in, or? Yeah,
We shall need to vote on it because the last time was not quorum. So
I will note my proposal then that I'm prepared to.
okay,
yeah,
so we have a
as
motion seconder to accept this policy. All those in favour, please. And a reminder that only councillors may vote. Thank you very much, everybody. That is unanimous. Right, okay, moving on to agenda item 8, which is a review of the Member Code of Conduct, which is... Okay, this is Mel again, isn't it? This is over to you, Mel.
It is. So obviously it's good practice to regularly review our code of conduct. So the purpose of this report was to bring it forward to you to consider whether it's appropriate to make any changes or not. My recommendation in the report is that because we obviously follow the LGA model code and they have not made any changes to it since we adopted it, that I'm not recommending any changes at this time, particularly in light of local government reorganisation being on the horizon. Do I think the code is perfect? No, and I know I mentioned last time that some of the terminology, so the other other registrable, I couldn't think of that. The other, sorry, I don't advise on it very often. The other registrable interest is not terminology that most people understand, and I do think it does cause members issues because they're constantly thinking, what is it I've got to call it, you know what? So I do think personal and prejudicial interest that we used to have was better terminology, but ultimately I wouldn't recommend that we would stray from the LGA code, because if we did that, every time we wanted to make a change, we would have to go out and do our own consultation exercise, which would be particularly onerous. So my recommendation to the committee is that we remain with the current code with no changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mel. As ever, throwing open for comment questions to the independent members. No. Councillors, do you have anything you wish to ask, comment on? Oh, were you both about to do that?
Can I ask a question, Chair?
Yes, you may ask the question.
I was going to ask why, if Mel or in fact our Vice Chair knows, why it moved to registrable and non-registrable interests away from those terms. I don't know.
So a number of organisations, I think some of you are aware around the table, a number of organisations worked on it. So the Association of Local Council Clerks, LGA, some people, I think that some people are aware, but so a number of organisations, they had a lot of sessions with different monitoring officers, independent persons, And I think there was feedback. There was feedback from monitoring officers that people didn't like that terminology, but they, there will have been lots of different views. People, it's not an exact science. So that was the wording they felt was most appropriate at the end. So yeah.
Thank you, Mel.
Thanks.
John, you don't need to come back. Okay. Does anybody have any more questions? Okay, I think they had a proposal from Stuart to accept the document and vote on it. Does anybody want to second that? I think Tim, go for it. Okay, all right, so we've got a proposer and a seconder. If you're in favour of accepting this proposal, which is not to change anything at present, then please raise your hand now. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to agenda item 9, which is the draft annual report to council. Right, you have the document in front of you. Independent members, do you have any questions, comments? Martin, please go ahead. Please do.
I have two things to suggest or mention. Firstly, at paragraph 3.1, this is actually dealing with the fact that we've had a couple of recent in-court meetings. There's a reference to all group leaders being reminded of the importance of councillors giving priority to these meetings. I was just, as an independent member, pleased to see that. So thank you for putting that in.
Absolutely. I obviously, after the last informal thing, tried to take all the feedback that the committee had made, and we raised it with the group leaders, and the group leaders have clearly taken it seriously because we do have more members. But obviously, the more we can be encouraging that, the better.
I did have a suggestion under the paragraph 9, which is headed "Looking Ahead," and I'll try and explain why I'm suggesting what I am. Firstly, as a tiny point, if fourth line up from the bottom, there's a sentence beginning with the words "following the government consultation." I wonder whether that could be just treated as a separate paragraph, rather than just lost within "Looking Ahead" as one paragraph. But the real reason for suggesting that is I've got in mind suggesting a paragraph 9.3, final paragraph, which picks up on a point I've made a number of times over a number of meetings over a number of years about the importance of bringing forward to this meeting examples of good practice elsewhere in the country. Now, I do appreciate that this is now something that is in the work plan for the year ahead, but to be honest, we've never had it over the 8 or so years I've been doing this. So just to make it clear that this is the real intention and put it in writing, you'll always get a very honest description from me. I do have a form of words here which would just show the intention to do this in the future, which I hope would just make this a matter of good practice. And I may well not be here by then because I've done a couple of terms already, so I'd be pleased if this was a tiny legacy. But it reads, in order to keep members of the committee fully informed on standards issues, the committee will receive regular updates to include emerging best practice elsewhere in the country and standards decision.
I didn't quite, so I got committee will receive regular updates on emerging best practices.
Emerging best practice elsewhere in the country, as well as standards decisions. Something like that.
You mean standards decisions of this council or other councils?
You know what I may need more precise wording there, but
of course this is what our training scenarios
I would have written case law probably, but that probably sounds a bit official. Or words to that effect.
I think Mel's going to go with from other authorities because
other authorities and case law already.
Thank you for that, Martin. Yes, Pat.
Just linked to that, would it be sensible then to follow that through by saying there should be something provided to the town and parishes? because it's not just the committee who learns, who needs to learn and understand precedent, but it's the town and parish councils understanding the sort of decisions that are being made out there.
Yeah, when I do code of conduct training, I have in the past covered that type of thing. So absolutely, we could put something in town and parish training to also cover, cover something similar.
Councillor Loudon, I believe you have something to say.
Just following up on that point, I may be wrong, but I'm not sure that's quite the point that was trying to be put across. Was it more about sharing on a regular basis, as you would do with this committee, as opposed to occasionally picking it up through any training? So, for example, if on the next agenda item there is a report that gives links to various things, we just copy it and send it out to towns and parishes. Was that the point you were trying to make?
So maybe regularly pushed up with the newsletter that goes out to towns and parishes.
Personally, I don't think we need to make it too complicated. I just think if there's a document there that you can put in a group email to people, I think that probably is what was being sought.
Capture the intention of what you said. Thank you very much, Pat. Are there any more questions, comments, precisions? And what about from councillors? Any comments, any questions? Councillor Loudon, please.
I just want to go back to the beginning and the point, one of the latter points that Martin raised, which was about the, I think it was in 3.1 from memory. Yes, all group leaders have been reminded, and the monitoring officer updated you on that. And just to reinforce that, I went to that meeting. I think it was the last but one meeting. Councillor Brown was one of the leaders in attendance. Get the right word out. And I did make the point, and it was directed at all groups, and that includes my own, about the need and the implications of these meetings not being quorum, not just in terms of getting the business done, not just in public perception, but also, frankly, the disrespect that's shown to yourselves. You make the effort to come along, whereas perhaps we collectively don't in the same way.
Thank you for that comment, Councillor Loudon. Sorry, more informally, aren't we? We do more informally than we did last night. John, thank you. Colin, Stuart, do you have any comments or questions? Okay, all right. So are we? I mean, I looked at you, and you. Tim, is there anything you would like to say? Going to do it now.
Absolutely none. I think it is a marvellous report and should go ahead as.
So yeah, Tim. Okay, so with the various updates supplied by our wonderful independent persons, so we are happy to vote on this report. So if you are in favour of accepting this draft report, would you please raise your hand now? That is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Chair, can I just ask the monitoring officer, are we then looking to the next full council meeting in October?
Yes, that's when it will go. In addition, we will be inviting the chair to go to one of the Leaders Liaison meetings before that to basically present that report to Leaders Liaison as well.
Yes, I'm very aware that I have not yet started that.
You.
Here's your money, takes your choices, John. Right, agenda item 10, Code of Conduct Complaints Update. Right, now this is over to you again, Mel, isn't it? Oh, is it Katie?
No.
Katie, over to you, please. Thank you.
It's just the usual update, the tables and the data as per the regular update that we do. I think the only thing I would probably say that I've noted so far this year is I definitely think that there's a reduction in the number of complaints. There's probably looking like an increase in the number of inquiries, but I think that that's because they're not turning into complaints. So I think that's quite interesting, but it's been definitely, I'd say, for me dealing with them, quite noticeable definitely towards the second half of, well, the second half of the first half of the year. So yeah, any questions or comments, happy to answer.
I
Mel,
just
yes,
add,
please do.
and just to, I'm sure it's been noticed, but Katie's also added the additional column, haven't you, in terms of the
Yes.
breakdown of complaints about where the complaint is coming from, which was something that the committee asked for last time.
Right, okay, independent persons, please, first. Any comments, questions, precisions, typos? No, front.
Well, I
Oh,
just wanted to actually
please, Rob.
congratulate that, you know, as I come to the end of my tenure on as an independent person, that compared with where it was at the beginning and where it is now, it definitely looks like it's going in the right direction, and that those complaints are being informally gated before they go into the process, so you don't get this long list of almost zombie complaints that were there originally. So I think the team should be congratulated on doing that, because it's a definite improvement.
I could not agree more. I think it's a sea change compared to where we were 5 years ago, and actually a lot more proactively managed. Independent persons, anybody else? Councillors, which includes Tim? Pauline, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just ask, looking through these, the first three, were first contacted in, what if it's right, the 9th of the 2nd, 2020?
Sorry, can I ask you, what are we looking at? What are we looking
Sorry,
at,
I'm
Pauline?
looking at Annex A,
Yep, okay.
all right? And it just seems to be going on for such a long time. Is that correct? Because it says in exploring informal.
2025, not.
So that,
Oh, 25 is it?
yeah, there's 2025. There is a bit of a typo in the
sorry.
left-hand
It's
column.
all right.
The left-hand column contains an extra 0. Yeah. The extra 0 is being taken out, Pauline. It was an accidental extra 0. So it should be 2025. So these are all current year ones. It was just a typo. Okay, but thank you for that. Oh, Pat, yes, please.
I get closer into the process, into some of the details. I'm not going to go into that, but part of the engagement with Katie and Mel is very effective in drawing on my opinion, and also the other independent person, and when we're being consulted about the stages that are reached. So happy for it.
And thank you very much for your ongoing work in helping keep our council and our parishes calm. Thank you. Yeah, as calm as can be. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Councillor, sorry, John.
Pick up on Robert's point, which then it relates to Pat's point, and I think it is about the point that was being made by Robert about team, and it's not just the internal team, it's quite clearly the team that then works with the independent persons as well. So that demonstrates the benefit of your roles, and it also shows the benefit of the collective conversations and approaches that take place. And if I may, whilst I've just got the floor, Chair, if I then look at going back to the point that everybody is making, for me, the standout table is the very last one, the bar chart on its side. And if you go back to 2020, and I'm not asking, but I'd be quite interested to go to 1918, just be interesting to see whether or not 2020 was a peak or whether it was part of a constant trend. But 2020 was COVID times, wasn't it? And I just wonder, and we blame COVID for everything, and sometimes quite rightly, but I just wonder whether COVID did play a part, because none of us met in person. Now, when you meet in person, it can work both ways, can't it? It can reinforce your prejudices and your annoyance, but equally, when we were meeting online, building relationships didn't help doing so remotely. But that doesn't then explain why 2022 is sort of the second highest. And the only thing I can think of possibly is whether or not that was in the run-up to when were the last sets of elections?
Election 23.
23. So I'm just one, and come on, we're all politicians in towns, parishes, and at district level. Whether we wear a party political badge or not, we play politics with a small p in some way or another. And I just again wonder out loud whether that played some role in the backdrop against which all this was happening. None of that is meant to undermine or excuse the change that has quite clearly taken place over the last 3 years. It's a trend that we welcome, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I don't know, Katie, do you have any memory or off the top of your head figures about how it looked pre-2020? Has it gone up, gone down?
I'm not sure. I will have a look on the system whether or not the data is there. I was thinking perhaps for the once a year report where I kind of analyse the data in a little bit more detail. I'll see if I can pull together some trends to leave somebody else with for presenting next year.
For interest, and there is clearly a sea change that's happened over the last 5
definitely.
years.
I think there's always, it would be interesting to have a bit of a look. I agree, to see what maybe happened in those years. I mean, obviously we had the county elections earlier this year, so does that create a little peak? Or, it is interesting to see, what's going on. So yeah, let me do a bit of digging and see what I can find.
And Chair, it is also about the resources that the council is able to put into supporting all of this. And if we don't have the resources in there, people get more frustrated. Things that escalate and fester, and it's harder to nip them in the bud as we're trying to do now, if you will. So there's a whole range of things, and please don't waste too much time. It was a throwaway comment, Katie.
Okay. Yes, Martin, please.
I think there's also been process change. Sorry to talk about process, but if you go back a few years, it was all manual. It was easy to put in a complaint on paper without any supporting information or documentation to speak of, and rattle a cage far too early, because we would all wish that these things can be resolved very early on and aren't allowed to bubble up suddenly into a big complaint that potentially needs investigation. We introduced the electronic version which is very clear in requiring supporting documentation, also very clear in pointing out that what a complainant or prospective complainant should expect from the process. That didn't used to be there. For example, would an apology be enough rather than hauling people over the coals and taking blood? So I think there's been a lot of change, and the ones that have been talked about are relevant, but process is important too. And as an independent member, I'm pleased to see the change of direction. The only slight thought is that, horrible to say it, but the number's fallen so far that you almost get to a point where you think, well, is it showing the reality of what's really going on in terms of what's happening amongst many of the complaints used to be councillor to councillor, rarely from members of the public, and we're seeing such a marvellous reduction. You almost think, are we capturing everything? And I'm sure that's not fair, but it's a natural human reaction to just wonder whether some things that should be coming forward genuinely because they ought to are not making it through for some reason we don't fully understand.
I mean, I do believe that the monitoring officer team, I think you maintain a register of contacts, don't you?
What I was going to say is we are capturing everything, but I totally understand the point, because I suppose what we don't know is out there, particularly in the towns and parishes, where whether the fact that the process is available for people is known to everybody. So that may be the area, and it's always a fine line for a standards committee in terms of how much do you promote the process to encourage complaints, and it is a really fine balance to get to. But yeah, I mean, that definitely could be the case, that there's not awareness everywhere that this is a process that people can go down, and maybe more people would, if they were aware of it, come down. But we certainly keep records of everything.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Martin. Are there any more questions or comments or contributions? Yes, thank you, Tim.
Joanna. Yeah, I mean, we could have a marvellous discussion about this in the pub, you know, and we could take all evening doing that. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole or whatever. We actually, all of us, I think, were here last night. We had for everybody else's benefit, we had a 4.25 hour meeting last night. Everybody was getting very tired at the end. But one of the items that took a long time to deal with was a request from a parish meeting, not a parish council, but a parish meeting, to get certain powers to allow for East Devon District to allow those powers. And I just wondered how far parish meetings are involved in any code of conducts or complaints or whatever in that area.
Thank you, Mel.
So they're not at all. So that is obviously one of the, excuse me, is one of the concerns in relation to parish meetings, is that obviously they're precepting and they're holding monies, but they actually are not bound by a code of conduct. I have had in the past a parish meeting try to introduce a code of conduct because they wanted to be bound by it. But because it's not covered in the Localism Act, I couldn't allow them to do so because I wouldn't be able to legally enforce it. So it was pointless. So yeah, it's a real loophole in the law.
So for the benefit of the independent persons who weren't here at our monster meeting last night, a parish meeting is not a parish council. It is essentially a meeting of villagers that gets together to act as a parish council, I suppose, and votes on items. So on the one hand, it encourages a lot more participation by residents, and I think the parish meetings tend to be much, much larger than the average parish council meeting, which is greatly to their credit. But of course, it's a grey area of the law in terms of how they are funded and how they spend money. And so, you know, quite rightly, we had to spend quite a lot of time discussing the request last night, which I think frustrated some people, but I think it was necessary to do that. Right, okay, are we now ready to vote on this? Oh, John.
No, I waved at someone walking past on the gallery. Sorry.
Don't be distracted, John. We're in a meeting here. Come on. Right, are there any more comments, questions, requests for alterations, or can we vote on this? Are we happy to accept this? We're just noting, aren't we? It's just for noting. It's just for noting. So I think we've said what we had to say, and I think we should thank Mel and Katie and their team for the work that they do on an ongoing basis, which we don't necessarily see because it's about talking to people on the telephone.
And in light of some of the comments made, can I just add our thanks as well to the independent persons for all the help and support they give us, because it's a critical part of what we do, and we really welcome that.
Absolutely, I say this every time we meet informally as well. Your work is absolutely crucial. The things that you do behind the scenes is absolutely crucial to our good functioning and how we're perceived by the outside world. So thank you so much for your ongoing work. And if anybody wants to put their candidature forwards to be an independent person, it's available.
Absolutely.
Everybody out there. Right, okay, so we're skipping over agenda item 11 because we're going to take that into a training session after the meeting is.
Chair, I've just realised that there's two elements to item 11, which is the training of district councillors and the standards decision, so the training. So before you close the meeting, it may be worth me just giving the update on the training when we get to that item,
Yes,
just so we don't forget.
So when we get to agenda item 11, we'll do that bit first, and then we'll close the meeting, and then we'll discuss the scenarios. Okay, so we are actually moving to agenda item 12, which is the work programme update, which is the last item on the agenda before we close the meeting formally. This is for you again, Mel, isn't it?
It is. So basically, I've put together a draft work programme for the next year. It has a lot of the things in there that we have in our work programme each year, but it may well be as members that you've got ideas on other things that you would like brought forward. So very happy to consider any other items that you would like added to the draft work programme.
Does anybody have any idea of something that they want us to add to that work programme? I mean, given the monster discussion we had last night and the worries that were expressed last night, I do wonder whether we need some kind of guidelines for parish meetings. But I don't know how that would fit in with the legislation and what's possible, because from what you were saying just now, that if we don't have any powers to enforce anything, then
Yeah, we don't really have any we don't have any jurisdiction really. Yeah, I mean, even in towns and parishes, our only jurisdiction is based around the code of conduct, and obviously parish meetings don't have code of conduct. So yeah, we could do something, but it's not really within our.
the best we can do is hope that parish meetings try to adopt as many of the good practices of parish councils as they can, and they're able to. Pat, would you like to say something?
Yes, it's a question, I suppose, about town and parish councils again, and not all of them have got your or the district's code of conduct. So is there a drive to try and harmonise that, to encourage them to adopt the district council one, or is it worth it in that sense, just encourage compliance with whatever's in front of them?
It's always quite difficult in terms of keeping up to date with all the different codes that everybody has. The way we try and promote going for the LGA code is that we provide the training on the LGA code. So, it means then if they take that up, they can, if they take up that code, then they can take up the training with us. So we could do more on that. We could promote it more. But if I had to go back out now and ask all 60 what they've got at the current time, I know we've done that in the past and we don't get answers, and it's quite a big piece of work. So just a bit of caution, I suppose.
So yes, Rob, and then Ken.
I just wonder whether one suggestion might be, purely having been through this in a previous life, once the final submission in October, I believe, goes to the government on the reorganisation, whether something is added to the work plan to start looking at, and I appreciate no decisions can be made, but almost doing a comparative review of the different standards of the constituent councils that are put forward in October, whatever that looks like. Because I think, my view is that irrespective of politics with a big P here, it seems fairly obvious that reorganisation is going to happen in some form or another. It's not going to remain as is. And if you leave it till the actual transition year or transition years, and I suspect that it won't be a long transition period, there will be an awful lot of work to do in a very short period of time. And like I say, having been through this previously as an employee of a local government organisation, if you can get ahead of it, I think you might be making your life a little bit easier.
No, I think that's a very fair comment, isn't it?
It's a fair comment, I suppose. What I would just add, having been through this previously, and yeah, you literally, when the Shadow Authority is set up, you've got probably 9 months in which to pull everything together. And obviously, even for the Shadow Authority, you have to have a code of conduct. I think it would be a really interesting piece of work to do a comparative review. The only thing I'd say is the reality of it is whoever is leading, so for example, if it went to a one unitary, it would likely be the current county council that would be leading on it. The likelihood is that they would decide to just continue with the code they already have. It's a discussion that's had. I also think the most likelihood is that everybody would go with the LGA code. So, but absolutely, I'm not adverse in any way of doing a comparative review. It'd be quite interesting in terms of having a look at, where everybody is within those councils. But yeah, just to, give a little bit of background. Yeah, thank you.
We don't have any words left after last night. I think John just wanted to come in, and then I think Ken. Oh, was it Ken? So John first about that, wasn't it?
Yes, please. And then I saw Martin had put his hand up as well, Chair. Just to follow on from what Mel has just said, and yes, Robert, at some point, I'm sure this will happen, but just to say, we won't be putting in submissions until I think it's towards the end of November. We then wait, and potentially there could be, across Devon, there could be 11 different submissions across Devon. And then we wait for the government to tell us what we're doing. And as Mel says, who knows what shape it's going to take as we move forward. at the moment, we have a number of work streams that are going on in order to look at the data, what the data tells us, what that then leads individual and collective councils to recommend as their options. And that's where currently all of the huge focus and a huge amount of time and energy, and it genuinely is a lot of time and energy and money being spent on just trying to pull that together. So I would have thought once we get, and as Mel was talking about, once we get towards the point where we're moving towards a shadow authority or authorities, then presumably as part of the work streams, different officers will do, and I presume people like Mel would be instrumental in leading, being part of that around standards, etc., etc. That is where I think it all would kick in. All I'm just trying to say is, good point, but I think we're a long way at this stage from having a clue as to where we're going to be in the future.
Mel wants to come back in on that.
I was just thinking, actually, it might be more for the following year's work programme. So maybe that's something we absolutely should talk about again next year.
I mean, I agree with Mel, actually, that's probably the path of, not least resistance, but the path of least conflict will be to go with the LGA guidance, because they'll be doing it on a much larger level and be able to cascade down to the new local authorities. Right, now, I'm trying to remember, was it Pat, do you want to come in? So it was Ken first and then Martin.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a reference to the training that's coming up in the autumn. We've talked about training many times before and the importance of it. I just wondered, is there a process for monitoring attendance, or does the Code of Conduct place a personal responsibility on people to attend? I just wondered which way around that is.
It's a little bit of both. I mean, clearly we do take records of those attending, and certainly in relation to the district council, it is we've made it mandatory to undertake code of conduct training. So, absolutely, we will be recording who those are and making sure that any of those that haven't done the mandatory training that we get to, and that I offer sessions to. So, yeah, I'll update on that when we get to the final report.
Martin, I think you're next, please.
Yeah, I was just pondering on the issue raised about parish councils having varying codes of conduct, and just thinking that we are, as a district, we're one of those who, from time to time, are involved in consultations about the future of the code of conduct, and to the LGA, for example. It must surely, speaking for the public, must surely be sensible for a model code of conduct that is developed nationally by the LGA, taking into account extensive consultation, to be applied universally throughout local government, maybe allowing for individual councils to add on some points of detail, but the expectation that all councils, parish, district, county, will adopt the model code of conduct as the core code of conduct. That would provide universality across the whole sector, and accepting yes, there may be some additions that could be made locally to deal with very particular and peculiar circumstances. But otherwise, that would deal with the issue we're talking about, that in a county, like in a district like East Devon, we do have this problem. And it makes it more difficult for training, for councillors to understand what the expectations are of them. But it also, I think, we must confuse the public, who think, why should there be these differences? But also, why do we spend so much time and energy trying to develop for our own council, our own communities also, something that could be better done as a universal product?
I suppose we are all bound, well, we're all governed by the Nolan Principles, and individual codes of conduct are expressions of the Nolan Principles. So in some respects, we are all bound by the same principles, but I suppose there will be local, flavours applied to. But I do take your point that a bit more universality would be quite good. Mel,
It's interesting because people always say we're bound by the Nolan Principles, and you are, but the Nolan Principles aren't the requirements you're required to follow. The way that you show compliance with the Nolan Principles is with the compliance with the obligations in the code. So people do get confused with that. We often get complaints where people are saying we want to make a complaint because they breached the Nolan Principles, but you can't breach the Nolan Principles. You have to breach, failure to treat with respect, bullying, that type of thing. So I think that's always confusing for people as well to understand. I'm hoping that as a result of the consultation that we responded to, that the government absolutely will consider that point. So, yeah, let's see what comes forward.
You just need to be a little bit more French. Katie.
I was just going to add that from my perspective in dealing with the complaints, yes, there are different codes out there, but they generally all are referring to the same things. So it doesn't, well, from my perspective, it doesn't cause a huge, amount of complication or difficulty. Yes, we have to refer people to make sure that they find the relevant code to make sure their complaint is obviously, referring to that rather than ours or the wrong one. But the principles are generally, there. Slightly different wording.
The intention is the same, it's just the words that change, yeah.
The respect is there, or the bullying, I haven't seen any where there's anything, I could be wrong, but I haven't seen any so far where there's anything really significantly different to ours.
I haven't in East Devon, but I have in previous areas seen codes that parishes have pulled together that just are not legally enforceable, so it can happen. But yeah, like Katie, I haven't seen any here yet.
Hopefully, with the advent of the internet everywhere, maybe less and less. Pauline, you're up next, please.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, do we know, or have got any idea, how many out of the 60 actually go with a local code of conduct?
No, when I said 60, I suddenly questioned myself as to whether that was the right number. I think there's a lot more parishes than 60, actually. I got that number wrong. Yeah. What was the question? Sorry, I've lost the question now.
I was just going to ask, do we know roughly how many people actually follow the code of conduct? Have they got their own? And the
they're all
parishes and
required
towns.
to have their. Yeah, they're all required to have their own code of conduct. As to how many follow it, we don't have that figure in terms of the number that follow the LGA code.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Absolutely. We would have in the past, but as I said, it's quite difficult. It takes quite a lot of time to gather that information.
Just seems ridiculous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, do you have any comments on the future program? John, please.
2 points. First of all, just following up on what Martin said, all I would say to you, Martin, was that I now put you in the same camp as John Lennon, who said you may think that I'm a dreamer. Whilst I have every sympathy with what you said. Right, the serious point is on our table. The penultimate point is to receive regular updates on Gibson hospitality, and then the timetable there, Mel, is July this year. And January. Clearly, July won't happen. Our next meeting is November. And I was just wondering, should we be trying to timetable this? Because it's linked now clearly to the financial year, should we be trying to timetable it so it's halfway through the financial year and at the end of the financial year, and therefore linked to the relevant committee meetings that follow?
I was intending to bring it to this meeting, but then it occurred to me that actually the opportunity of the protocol and the adoption of that was a great training session to then remind awareness of declarations. So I agree that it needs to be twice a year. I mean, if you wanted to have it in November, then obviously I wouldn't want to bring it less than 6 months. So it's, so that's entirely in your hands, really.
So, I mean, our next scheduled standards meeting is in November, isn't it? But 6 months from April the 5th is October sometime, I guess.
But which then takes us to the first meeting thereafter. Sorry, the first meeting thereafter is the November meeting. And presumably then the following May, June, whatever it is,
Yes.
in our calendar.
Okay. All right. Are we happy to note that we're noting this, aren't we? We don't have to vote on it. Noting, not voting. To note.
Yes, approving the work programme if members are happy to approve.
Okay. Well, members, if you're happy to approve the work programme, given what we've heard from the independent members and their comments and all the things that we've expressed, then would you please raise your hand now? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, now moving swiftly from item 12 to item 11, we have the standards update. Oh, no, we've got a little nubbit,
So,
which is public
only
first.
very briefly, I was just going to mention, because the one area where I've just not had the capacity to do as much as I wanted was in terms of training, so, and doing more training. So what I've agreed with my Democratic Services Manager, because we're working on a training programme for members generally, is we're aiming to do some training between September and November. So Code of Conduct will come within that. So I do know that I've got members that need to do further training, so that will all be picked up at that point, and I'll obviously be keeping a record of all of that and working to ensure that everybody has done the mandatory training that they need to do. I'm also considering whether I open some sessions up to town and parish councils as well, because I'm acutely aware that we've not had it since the election, so we'll try and incorporate that as well. So it's just to update you. But if members are happy with that, then I would suggest, Chair, that we now close the meeting to go into the training session. Sorry, happy to answer any questions beforehand.
If there are any questions for Mel about that part of what she's just said? No, I think, okay. So in that case, we are going to move the training session into a private session. So I'm now going to close the meeting, but hang around because we're about to do some interesting casework. Well, see how we get on with it. Thank you very much to everybody watching online, and thank you to everybody who's come all this way to sit in standards. And we are now going to stop the live feed. Debbie will tell me when we're good to go with the scenarios.